Imagine a world where the next big war isn't fought with tanks and bombs, but just with lines of code. Like, what if the lights went out across a whole continent? Not a technical glitch, but a deliberate cyber attack. Well, that's not sci-fi anymore. It's kind of the escalating reality of what we're calling cybersecurity wars, this silent digital battlefield that's already changing everything.
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. Our goal really is to cut through all the headlines and give you a clear view of this often invisible threat. We'll look at some major recent attacks, define what cyber warfare actually is now, and explore why people are calling it the most dangerous battlefield yet. We'll also pinpoint where these conflicts are hottest right now, and maybe try to gauge, how close we really are to some kind of major digital disaster.
Okay, and we've been digging into a recent breaking news style dispatch on this, pulling out the key insights for you. It's a lot, definitely, but we'll help you connect the dots. All right, let's get into it. Our sources are clear. This isn't just theoretical stuff. Major attacks, often with a state-sponsored feel, are ramping up. And there's a pattern emerging globally. It's pretty chilling.
Yeah, what's really striking is just how widespread and frankly sophisticated these things have become. The lines are blurring, between traditional conflict and digital attacks. No sector seems immune. Take Aeroflot, Russia's airline. Just last week, a pro-Ukrainian group called Silent Crow, apparently backed by Belarusian cyber partisans, hit them hard. It wasn't just about grounding over 100 flights by knocking out IT systems. They also threatened to leak personal data for tens of millions of people.
Wow. So it's disruption and data exposure plus that psychological element.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about creating chaos, undermining trust. And at the same time, Ukraine's own cyber intel reportedly launched DDoS attacks and stole 100 terabytes of data from occupying authorities down in Crimea. It's happening on multiple fronts.
Okay, so that's the situation around the Ukraine conflict.
Right.
What about other hotspots? Asia, for example.
Right. Moving to Asia. Between March and June this year, 2025, we saw Chinese state-aligned groups, these APTs, advance persistent threats like UNK Cult Sentry and UNK Sparky Carp. They ran spear phishing campaigns targeting semiconductor companies and analysts in Taiwan, using malware, names like Voldemort and HealthKick, basically to get remote access and steal strategic IP.
Intellectual property.
Yeah.
So that supports Beijing's goal of becoming self-sufficient in chip-making.
Precisely. It's a long-term strategic play, not just immediate disruption.
And here in the U.S., are we seeing similar things targeting our own infrastructure?
Oh, absolutely. Our critical infrastructure is definitely being probed, and in some cases, breached. There's this Chinese group, Salt Typhoon. They're also known as Silk Typhoon. They've reportedly accessed major telecoms. Think AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Spectrum, Lumen. They apparently got hold of wiretap metadata for some high-profile people and, worryingly, might have even breached U.S. National Guard networks as recently as July.
Metadata? That sounds serious. And wasn't there another group mentioned, Volt Typhoon?
Yes, Volt Typhoon, linked to the PLA, China's military. Their focus seems to be maintaining long-term quiet access inside U.S. infrastructure. The goal appears to be positioning themselves to disrupt a military mobilization, potentially, if there were ever a conflict over Taiwan.
That sounds less like hacking and more like digital siege preparation.
It has that feel, doesn't it? And it's not just land-based systems. The maritime world is vulnerable, too. NATO's Cyber Defense Center, the CCDCOE, put out a warning. European civilian ports, which handle something like 80% of global trade, are facing state-linked cyber attacks. They're targeting access systems, traffic controls, and many of these incidents point towards Russia, Iran, and China.
Ports make sense as a target, and undersea cables, too.
Definitely. Recorded Future Track 9 incidents, possible sabotage affecting those vital data cables in the Baltic Sea and near Taiwan between 2024 and 2025. These cables carry, 99% of intercontinental data? Severing those? Well, the impact would be immense. Digital isolation.
Okay, so this goes way beyond what most people think of as hacking. What exactly is cyber warfare in this modern context? It feels like the definition has expanded.
It really has. It's not just, crashing a website anymore. It's much broader. You've got sophisticated espionage, like digitally sneaking in and stealing intellectual property, strategic plans, supply chain details, often without anyone knowing for months or years. Then there's outright disruption. Think destructive malware aimed at crippling power grids, hospitals, transportation networks, things that cause immediate real-world chaos.
Right, so stealthy theft on one hand and noisy destruction on the other. What else?
Well, there's the whole realm of influence and misinformation. Using AI now, increasingly, to run propaganda campaigns, trying to sway elections, destabilize societies, just erode trust. And maybe the most alarming is physical sabotage, using cyber fiscal systems. Remember those pager and walkie-talkie attacks in Lebanon last September? Devices exploding?
Yeah, that was terrifying.
It showed how everyday objects, anything with a battery and a chip, can potentially be turned into a weapon. Your smart thermostat, your car's computer. It blurs the line between the digital and physical worlds in a really dangerous way.
Like a digital Trojan horse, turning our own tech against us. And our sources emphasized a few key things about these operations. Plausible deniability, low cost, huge strategic leverage. Why are those factors so important for states now?
Those factors are exactly why cyber is often called the most dangerous new battlefield. First, that low-cost, high-impact equation. You don't need an aircraft carrier. A small team of skilled attackers can cause massive disruption. Remember the Colonial Pipeline hack in 2021? Gas shortages all up the U.S. East Coast. Or more recently, March 2025, ransomware hitting the National Defense Corporation, apparently stealing 4.2 terabytes of data from weapons manufacturers. Huge impact, relatively low investment.
Right, so a small group can punch way above their weight, so to speak, which leads to the asymmetry idea.
Exactly, that's the second point. It's asymmetric and stealthy. Smaller states or even non-state groups like hacktivists can wield surprising power. We saw a group, CLSTA0969, reportedly lurking inside Southeast Asian telecom systems for months undetected. And you have Iran and its affiliated groups constantly hammering Israeli industrial systems with denial of service attacks, wiper malware, disinformation. They operate in the shadows, making it hard to pin down exactly who did what.
That stealth, that difficulty in pinning it down, that must connect to the plausible deniability point, doesn't it? How does that make things more dangerous?
It's arguably the trickiest part. It fuels what's called hybrid warfare. Attribution is notoriously difficult. State-backed hackers often work through front groups, private contractors, layers of fake identities online. It muddies the water. China, for instance, seems to be using more third-party hackers for hire. Russia's APTs, like Secret Blizzard or Turla, have used really sophisticated techniques, like compromising internet service providers to intercept data man-in-the-middle attacks, making detection incredibly hard. So if you can't definitively prove who launched the attack, how do you respond? Diplomatically, militarily. It creates huge uncertainty and raises the risk of miscalculation or uncontrolled escalation.
That lack of clear consequences is unnerving. Okay, so given this landscape, where are the hottest zones for these digital conflicts right now? Where should we be looking?
Well, several key theaters stand out. Europe and NATO are definitely feeling the pressure. We mentioned the NATO warning about ports and maritime logistics. There was also that Iberian Peninsula blackout in late April 2025, Spain and Portugal. A preliminary probe is looking into potential cyber sabotage of the power grid. And the UK government says it's now a top target for Russian cyber activity, sabotage, disinformation, direct intrusions, reporting a significant increase since around 2017.
So Europe's facing threats from multiple angles. What about the Asia-Pacific? We touched on Taiwan earlier.
The Asia-Pacific is critical. China's activity is persistent. We talked about Salt Typhoon and U.S. telecoms and Volt Typhoon embedding in critical infrastructure. Both seem like preparation for potential conflict scenarios. And Taiwan's semiconductor industry remains squarely in the crosshairs. China isn't just targeting the big firms. They're going after smaller suppliers, university research networks too, trying to find weaker links to get that crucial tech knowledge. It's a patient, strategic campaign.
And the Middle East, always a volatile region.
Indeed. The Middle East saw a sharp spike in cyber activity around June 2025, when hostilities flared up between Israel and Iran. It was reciprocal. Reports suggested Israeli cyber units hit Iranian financial systems. Iran responded with psychological operations, DDoS attacks by hacktivist groups, and wiper malware targeting Israeli energy and industrial sites. And U.S. authorities are still very watchful for Iranian attempts to penetrate infrastructure here in the homeland.
Which brings us back home. What's the picture for the U.S. Homeland and Critical Services?
It's busy, unfortunately. Google's threat intelligence group highlighted a group called Scattered Spider targeting U.S. infrastructure, often using clever social engineering via IT help desks to gain initial access before deploying ransomware, sometimes incredibly quickly. We've seen reports of a 800% jump in credential theft in mid-2025 passwords, logins affecting millions of devices from IoT gadgets to corporate networks, and the FBI recently issued a bulletin warning about increased Iranian hacktivist activity targeting U.S. utilities, transportation, and defense contractors. So yeah, it's a multi-front defense challenge.
Hearing all this, it really begs the question, how close are we, really close, to some kind of digital catastrophe that impacts everyday life for everyone. For you, listening right now.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The trajectory isn't comforting. The threats aren't just increasing, they're evolving. One major concern is the potential for AI-powered cyber weapons. Think about military AI cyber agents, or MAKES. These could be autonomous systems capable of finding vulnerabilities, making decisions, and launching attacks without direct human control. A recent paper argued these pose, frankly, existential threats, especially to critical infrastructure. It's a game changer.
Autonomous attack systems. That's deeply unsettling. And what about the physical side we talked about earlier, the cyber-physical link?
That's the other big accelerator. Those Lebanon pager attacks really drove home the point. Everyday connected devices can be weaponized. It forced governments everywhere to start seriously assessing vulnerabilities in things we don't normally think of as security risks, industrial control systems, smart city tech, even vehicle networks. Anything with a battery and connectivity is potentially a target for physical effects. So you put it all together, the threat landscape is just getting worse. Attacks on critical infrastructure were already up significantly in 2023, maybe around 30%, and sources suggest that trend has accelerated through 2025, especially during geopolitical crises. The warning signs are definitely flashing.
It feels like we're at a crossroads, doesn't it? A potential paradigm shift where nations could be crippled not by bombs, but by, well, bytes and botnets. Imagine widespread blackouts, communication failures across major cities, hospitals, schools now seen as likely targets facing system takeovers. The UK government actually warned that's very likely in the next year. Cutting those undersea cables could create digital blockades, like an old-fashioned siege, but for the information age.
So summing up this deep dive, the key takeaways for you are pretty clear, I think. First, cyber is undeniably a strategic domain now. National defense has to treat cyber readiness just as seriously as conventional military readiness. Second, these attacks are global, they're varied, they're constant, from espionage, stealing secrets, to outright destruction. Third, proving who did it is hard, but the consequences are real. That ambiguity, that plausible deniability, actually increases the risk of escalation because there aren't always clear rules for response. Fourth, resilience really depends on cooperation, public sector, private sector, sharing intelligence, coordinating responses. That's crucial for hybrid warfare. And finally, those emerging threats, AI, cyber-physical attacks, they're dramatically raising the stakes, opening up new pathways to potential catastrophe.
So in the shadows of every network, there's a potential battlefield. Cities could go dark, communication could vanish, healthcare could stop all because of code. Any nation ignoring this invisible front line, well, they're doing so at their own peril. That's definitely something for you to think about as this digital world keeps shaping and potentially disrupting our future.